afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast. Lehr with me, your host, Imperial Dane. We're off here to have a look at the Paratroopers. Yes, indeed, the Paratroopers, the US Airborne. Your elite infantrymen, available at a whopping 380 manpower, which makes them noticeably cheaper than the Fallschirmjäger. Well, at least somewhat cheaper than the Fallschirmjäger. They're a 6-man squad. They are basically only dropped in the game, which also means you actually have to be careful where you call them, because you call them in the wrong place, someone will actually get killed. So, I mean, generally, you sort of have to be careful about the terrain. You can do things to sort of minimize it, for example, using a Pathfinder to lay down beacons, which can actually sort of decrease the radius where they sort of drop in, making it safer for your paratroopers to drop in. So there's a little bonus fact there, so you don't end up losing half a unit, for example, dropping them down. Also, a little thing to sort of further tip, sort of keep dropping them down. You know, try not to drop them too close to the enemy. That's called doing a Crete, and well, it did not really end up well in Crete for the Germans. They still won, but the paratroopers suffered very heavily with the Fallschirmjäger, so be a bit careful with that. I mean, you know, you can drop them, for example, in the fog or war, but be careful with that, otherwise you will risk you end up dropping your men straight down into the jaw of the enemy, and he'll basically chew them to bits. So, a very little important thing there to keep in mind while using your paratrooper call-in. Otherwise, they're all armed with M1 carbines, though it should be noted they're actually not pretty bad. I can't remember the full level, but they're reasonably a bit, I think they're actually a bit above rifleman combat ability, so overall, I mean, a full squad of paratroopers is actually reasonably nasty when it comes to dealing with the enemy, so that's something that should be very much kept in mind when using your paratroopers. They are not weak. They're not like the company who's won paratroopers, for those that remember them, which really weren't very effective with the rifles. These gentlemen with the rifles are effective, so keep that in mind while using them. Though, of course, it all depends on the sort of combat situation. They can be upgraded with either 4 Thompson submachine guns or a pair of Browning light machine guns. The Browning light machine guns, well, increases their firepower quite noticeably. They can also fire it on the move, so that's a little thing there to keep in mind while using them. And they can also, when they have it, actually use an ability to suppress the enemy infantry. With the Thompson submachine guns, again, the ability sort of makes them a bit more useful on the move. Though in this case, they lost out here to the Fallschirmjägers in cover. I mean, they're not that good in light cover. They'll be versus another elite unit in heavy cover. So, I mean, keep that in mind. They are not Fallschirmjägers, and certainly can't attack them head on. But still, they are not pretty bad. And usually, most other infantry, they will easily win. In particular, once they have the Browning light machine guns, the paratroopers can rival pretty much most other infantry on the field. It should also be noted they can actually suppress the enemy if the enemy comes under fire long enough, even without the ability. But there you go, suppressive fire is a much more specific ability for those, and then they sort of have a passive suppression ability versus the enemy. So keep that in mind while using your paratroopers as well. They can also be enforced by the Pathfinder's beacons, so keep that in mind. I mean, that's a good reason to also have Pathfinder before, so sort of quick points where paratroopers can reinforce at the front line. That is also something you might want to keep in mind. They got grenades. It says cooked grenades, but basically they're the same as the other grenades, more or less. You just don't have to research to get them, that's it. They have timed demo charges, which is quite neat if you sort of quickly need to clear out an obstacle or something like that. Not bad at all. It's also cheaper than a regular demo charge. Though, of course, you can't use it as an improvised mine, but still you can use it, for example, to clear out obstacles, deal with something fortified, or who knows what, for the more creative player. But overall, the paratrooper unit is a very powerful unit. If used properly, can definitely decimate a lot of infantry, in particular with the Browning light machine guns. Most players, in fact, tend to go for the Browning light machine guns, as they do offer the most firepower, and also ensure you can dominate your opponent range. As for the veterans' abilities, in fact, most of them don't really sort of directly benefit their combat abilities sort of right away. I mean, they get sort of things that actually make their abilities work faster, increases grenade range. They sort of partly veterans, too, but also veterans 3, really, they become much better as infantry, though. So keep that in mind. They do require a bit more investment, but then again, with Browning light machine guns, it's not going to take an awful lot of time before they are hitting that level where they really sort of gain more bonuses of the usual ones. So keep that in mind as well. And of course, as the opponent, you want to sort of be, careful in dealing with him. Particularly with light machine guns, you don't want to be caught out in the open. That's a very bad spot to be caught in, particularly if you're attacking, since they will make short work of you if you're not very careful. The submachine guns, of course, I mean, all our rules apply sort of to the assault, which is, you don't want to be crossing open ground. You've also want to use the cover to sort of get close to the opponent without getting shot at. and then sort of get close up with the chum submachine gun. So if you do have it, they will be reasonably good up close. In fact, they'll be pretty good. But again, most players tend to go for the Browning light machine guns since overall, while a bit more expensive, it does tend to sort of provide more overall firepower, which is what most players favour. And of course, if you can shoot them from distance, you know that generally tends to do quite well for you. So overall, a very potent anti-infantry squad. And again, they can, well, to a certain extent, alter the right conditions, even rival Obersoldaten. In fact, clear them out if you do this correctly. So, again, very powerful infantry unit. And in heavy cover, they are quite difficult to dig out, in particular to reach veterancy free. As you might be noting here, I mean, there's got a large amount of enemy infantry, but they're actually, in fact, here, we got one unit suppressed. And MG-34 here, which is slowly being cleared out as well. So, I mean, overall, don't underestimate paratroopers. Don't underestimate them one bit, or you will regret it. I think that sort of largely covers the paratroopers, their antics and what not. Though of course they are somewhat expensive to reinforce. In fact, they are reasonably expensive to reinforce, I believe. And I do believe they actually veterancy free maybe actually gain ability to heal themselves. I think that might be a bug, but it does happen. And there we go, 28. That's actually pretty cheap. Huh. Either way, they are reasonably expensive. And of course, I mean, you can try and get a lot of them, but it will hurt you since again it is 380 manpower. But overall, you do get a lot of, well, bang for your buck when you call in the paratroopers and you use them correctly. You can really lay down the hurt on your opponent. They really units so quickly get kills, and they are certainly a personal favourite for when I play the Americans alongside Pathfinders, again with the beacons, which allow them to reinforce in the field overall, creating a very dominant force, in particular on the defense. Though no slouches on the offense either. So that overall should cover it. I mean, the strengths, weaknesses, which is basically the infantry. In fact, they are very vulnerable to vehicles since they have no anti-tank. So, I mean, that's something very much to keep in mind while using them. There's also a variant, though, which you get with another Doctrines drop-in, which can basically randomly arrive with weaponry. They also lack some of the abilities of these ones, but overall, I mean, they can either drop in with BARs, bazookas, or a single Browning light machine gun. They can also drop in, I think, with submachine guns. So there's a sort of slight there. They call themselves support paratroopers, but overall, they still sort of perform largely like these. These ones, though, are cheaper to get. The other one's a 900 ability manpower ability, so I don't think that came out. A little quick note there, but overall, I mean, most people I imagine will be using these ones, and again, pretty solid infantry. Be careful with the jumps against striking the vehicles, or sort of try to outmaneuver them, kill them quickly. In particular, light machine guns, if you grab the Browning light machine gun, that's also pretty good. So this is pretty potent. And will certainly make your opponent very, very sad that he gave a Browning light machine gun to you. Hiccup. So, thank you all for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you got some ideas for your own games. Hope you got some better ideas to use them and how to fight against them. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers, and thank you all for watching.